You're listening to Sock FM. Welcome to Sockjig Live. I'm your host Sockjig, and this is a special edition of the podcast where I kind of treat it like a radio program, kind of like a live show, even though it's not live show. It's kind of like an almost live show. You know, I've always used the phrase all killer, no filler, which is like a 90s rock FM radio show slogan from around here. So I wanted to try out a radio show format and have defined segments and breaks and work within the confines of a format, of a structure. And then in future episodes, I can try different things in this format. I can have guests for specific topics. I can have people sit in with me for news and things like that. So this is just an idea I had and I wanted to give it a try. So here I am. It might not be the final incarnation of this. It's just a format I can use once in a while if I feel like it. I will probably go back to the other format, the regular format for the show that I have, but occasionally, if I want to, I will use this format. And so overall, the goal with this format is to make it an easy, quick listen and get you caught up on some sneaker news, have some sneaker takes, and have some fun with it. The rundown for the show, I talk about some recent releases and news. I talk about the Infinite Archives Jordan 17 releasing, Adidas Jellyfish. There's a new Doernbecher collection, and I talk about how it's better just to say nothing if you feel anything negative about those sneakers. I also give my thoughts about Salehe turning down Nike and doing his own thing and how that ties in with Supreme's lawsuit against Tyshawn Jones. And I also discuss how there's allegedly a Mowalola Jordan 14 sneaker next year. For some longer segments, I give my thoughts about the complex sneaker of the year list and how content creators are kind of upset about the panel and who's on the panel and what is a sneaker of the year. And I appeal to everyone to learn the lessons from my feuds with Complex. So I lay that out. I'll also talk about the Virgil Abloh exhibit that was in Paris and also the Jordan 11 silhouette and how it was protected for so long, but the reins seem to be off now. And then finally, for the main segment, I give my thoughts about the Cool Kicks and the Great Sneaker Train Robbery and how is it that Cool Kicks allegedly had stolen sneakers even though the feds have been closing in on these theft rings for 2 years now. So a lot of show. Let's get this show going. Sockjig Live, Sockjig almost live. Back after this. Are you in an online sneaker beef right now? And are you losing the battle? Or you just don't have the time to handle an online beef with your busy schedule and hate someone full time? But you still really want to stick it to them and kind of win the beef? It's time to call us at Hired Goons Incorporated, and we'll settle all your online beefs for you. Call now 1-600-BEEF-G. The G stands for gooning. The G stands for goons. Hired Goons Inc. Let us do the gooning for you. Okay, let's try that again. Hired Goons Inc. Let us get you off. Okay, let's take a different approach. Call now and get the personal touch you can only get from Hired Goons. Terms and conditions apply. Offer void in Nebraska and Quebec. Back on the show, Sockjig Live, and I'll cover some recent releases that have been happening. Infinite Archives Jordan 17 released, and I thought it was a good shoe. I thought it was really well done. It was a little yellow, I thought, but the pictures made it look really good. But what I really did not like about it was the release method and how they handled it. There was a lot of multiple raffles, instant raffles, ones that went on for a day and a half. I think I entered one or two of them and missed the rest, but I did not win. And I saw that a lot of times the invoices went out very late at night and people either missed them, or if they even saw it half hour later, it was still sold out. So the release could have been handled a little bit cleaner. For smaller retailers like this, smaller collaborators like this, Equals actually works really well for them. And I thought they could handle it much better, where there's a set time, an announcement, a release date. Equal is doing some of the promotion for you as well too. And a lot of the randomness is taken out. Randomness is fine if it's shock drops, but I don't know, random raffles that have sold out invoices does not work for me. And I forgot to do a Mr. Brightside for this sneaker, but if I did, I'd probably make some jokes about how it looks like yellow teeth. So there you go, Mr. Brightside. Hope you feel better. Jellyfish, the Adidas Jellyfish, was released as well, again in blue and in gray as well too. And have you seen these sneakers in small sizes? You know, I don't mean to pick on the short kings or anything, but some of these sneakers in like size 8, they just look adorable. They look like little toddler sneakers, even though they're like massive and huge. But on the other side, a size like 13 or size 12 in my size would be massive. It'd be like a giant like boat anchor or something. So I don't know, maybe like a optimal size is like 9.5 or 10.5 or something. You know, the massiveness of these, they're obviously inspired by the Balenciaga, and I've been saying it as well too. It's inspired by the Balenciaga Triple S. But really, it was pointed out to me on Twitter that the midsole on this Jellyfish is very much from the Balenciaga Track and not the Triple S. And I think it's just because Triple S is the one that was the first like viral sneaker from Balenciaga. And that Adidas Track sneaker is a rip of Asics. And Matt Welty on the Complex podcast had a really good point about it, how these sneakers look like they're going to be dated very quickly because they are very trendy and of the moment. And that is true. They do look like that. And my advice then is, if you have a pair, if you're going to wear it, go ahead and wear that right now. Don't just put them on the shelf and wear them later when no one else is going to be talking about it. You might miss the window and then you got a dated sneaker and you don't want to wear it. Or sell it. The price is like sky high. It's like $1,000, $1,300, whatever it is, $1,500 US for some sizes. That's just an insane price, and get that money while you can, because there's not that many sneakers that are reselling for $1,300. And for Adidas, normally I would say if you have a hit shoe, you need to nurture it and protect it. And I'll talk about that, about the Jordan 11 and how they've always nurtured it and protected it. But in this case, if they know that this is going to be a trend sneaker and of trend, they should just blow it up. They should do as many releases as they can in as short of a window as they can. And so far, they've already released 3 of them, so maybe they are doing that. And that's kind of been Adidas' playbook anyways, just like how they blew up the NMD. And that was in a window of like 1.5 to 2 years. But for a trend sneaker like this, that window might be compressed to 8 months. We might see like 15 of these sneakers in 8 months. Also in the news, it was Bandit Day, and there was rumors that the Jordan 1 bread is going to come out again. Apparently it is going to come out again, but Band Day on October 18th did not happen. And did you celebrate Band Day? If you don't celebrate these corporate holidays, you'll upset the brands. You know, you don't want to upset the brands. And the brands are going to see it. They're going to notice it. They're going to be like, look at this fucking guy here. They didn't notice our corporate holiday. And then people are going to be upset, and then you got to go over there and console the brands, and then you're going to be put on the list, and you don't want to be put on the list. Or is it off the list? You're off the list. You're going to be taken off the corporate list. You don't want that, do you? So please go out there and celebrate these brand holidays. Also announced was the Doernbecher collection from the Doernbecher Hospital. And there's some really nice sneakers on there. There's a Jordan 17 that's really cool, and the Air Force Ones. And there's other like inline models of what Nike is pushing at the moment. And I always laugh anytime I see a comment on Twitter. I was talking about this on Twitter, where people call it trash or not good, or even like a backhanded compliment, like finally a good Doernbecher release, meaning that the past ones are trash. And this is one of the scenarios where you almost can't say anything. It's better not to criticize these sneakers. I was joking on Twitter where there's like a sick kid with a debilitating disease saying, "Hey, everyone, look at the sneaker I got to make that's based on my cute stuffy." The sneaker Twitter is like, "Look at this piece of shit. Get that teddy bear shit out of my face. Fuck." And I know it's just Twitter and people are just reacting to what they see, and there's no malice in something. You see a sneaker on Twitter, you react to it. But it's one of the few sneakers where if you just think twice about it, you have to just pause and think of the bigger picture and be like, you know what? It's not for me. You don't even have to say it's not for me. You just keep scrolling is all you have to do. Your Doernbecher release looks really good this year. Salehe Bembury was in the news. It was reported that he turned down a Nike deal. And Nike was like, "Hey, Salehe, we want to offer you the chance to put your ballsack imprint on these LeBrons and some Converse sneakers. What do you say, Salehe?" And Salehe was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll just do this on my own." This was revealed in a Wall Street Journal profile, and the article basically said this happened a few years ago. And it was more of an open that, instead of doing that, he's now struck out on his own with his brand called Sponge, which is just a bunch of SpongeBob sneakers that he was doing with Crocs, but are on his own label now. And you know what? Good luck to him. I wish you all the best with your SpongeBob sneakers. I hope it works out well. As I've been saying, in this day and age, you got to get your name and your face out there and do some PR and get profiles written about you in these bigger publications. Debuting a new sneaker brand and calling it, XYZ sneakers with no name and face is not going to work in this day and age. So he's out there, he's pounding the pavement, he's trying to drum up news and stuff about these sneakers. And honestly, the sneakers look like shit, but whatever. I'm not the one buying the Crocs SpongeBob ones. I like the New Balance stuff that he's done because he's still pretty good with colorways, and I assume he'll still do pretty good with colorways on his SpongeBob sneakers that he's doing now. But there's still enough about Salehe where that is off-putting, or he just does things wrong, and I don't know why. And he said there was a raffle on his site for these sneakers and then it sold out. But according to Reddit and Twitter, there is no documented cases of anyone actually winning from these raffles. So it's like, what are you doing? If you're trying to get an audience, you gotta be honest with them and talk to them and give them what they want. Otherwise, why would they want it? So I don't know why he's playing these types of games. Maybe he's trying to fake it that, there was real demand, but obviously there was some demand if Reddit is talking about it. But back to saying no to Nike, he clearly said no to Nike because he could make more money doing his own thing. And the article had no other details about it. And it's if Nike said, we want you to be exclusive with us, then he was probably I can go elsewhere. I can continue doing Crocs and a Puma and New Balance, and I can make more money than I can do doing this. And Nike also will lowball you because they are Nike. They take advantage of the fact that people want to work with them. That's what the advantage of being the worldwide leader. In pro wrestling, the same thing happens with WWE. People want to work there because it was their childhood dream to work there, and they will accept a lower pay. And there's documented cases of this happening. Where they turn down higher deals. And if it's your childhood dream to go do it, go ahead. Be well, take less money. But that's something you can do when you're the clear number one. And Nike knows they're the clear number one, and they can offer these take it or leave it type of contracts. And if you don't take it, well, we'll just get someone else. The same thing happened kind of with Tyshawn Jones and how he's got this lawsuit with Supreme. And he was making $1 million a year with Supreme if he was exclusive with them. He wore only their clothing in any of the skating stuff that he did, including it said in the contract, underwear and accessories or whatever it did, but it had to be everything Supreme. And there's lots of good jokes about this, as well, even the jokes about Salehe as well too, because it's what kind of idiot, why would he turn down Nike? And with Tyshawn, the same kind of thing. It's if you paid me $83,000 a month to wear only Supreme and stuff, I'd be like that Eric Whiteback guy who'd always be, head to toe Supreme. All fine and good jokes and stuff, but it's always if Louis Vuitton is offering me a ton of money, if Marc Jacobs is offering me a ton of money to model for them, but I can't because I'm stuck in an exclusive with Supreme, and I could be making way more than the $1 million they're giving me, then I need to get out of this contract. So maybe that's what's happening here. A split is needed on both parts, and maybe Tyshawn could go make money and Supreme can go find someone else. In other news, it was reported by Brandonian and Sneaker Market Romania, both friends of the show, that Mowalola is going to have a Jordan 14 sneaker next year, along with clothing and apparel. And this is obviously unconfirmed because brands don't really confirm anything until they do the press release a couple weeks before a drop. But if you don't know, Mowalola is this controversial fashion designer. She's very loud and aggressive about it. And, that's fine. Being a woman in the industry, you can be loud and aggressive. But she's also close friends with Ian Connor and Kanye. One who is an alleged rapist and the other is a Nazi. And herself, she has generally done some stupid shit as well. But she's got a dedicated following in fashion circles. She's also got dedicated haters as well, too. Some guy in fashion Twitter who reports on fashion Twitter or something said recently that she allegedly tried to have him killed, and also said that her employees all hate her and there's going to be lawsuits and stuff soon. Overall, it's really, really possible that she's just not a good person. You know, being friends with Ian Connor and Kanye might be a good hint at that. So I was wondering, did Jordan Brand vet her? Like, who's calling the shots and approving these collabs? Is it Jason Maiden, the design guy there, Reggie Saunders? Is he the guy who calls the shots? James Whitner, he has a lot of pull with collabs from what I've heard. So I don't know, you know, all this controversy and stuff aside, nothing ever really happens, it seems. If someone is controversial or is seducing the alt-right or whatever bullshit that she's into this day, if she's trying to have people killed allegedly, it's like, yeah, whatever, the sneakers still sell. She's got a dedicated following. That's just the day and age we are in right now. So we'll see how it goes. But when I saw this announced, I was like, yeah, good luck with that, Jordan Brand. Sockjig Live, back in 2 and 2. Have you been injured falling down the stairs in your Adidas Jellyfish sneakers just because they're too bulky? Have you spilled hot coffee on yourself because the chunky midsole on your Adidas Jellyfish hit the curb of the sidewalk, and now your Unk fit is completely ruined? If so, you may be owed compensation from Pharrell Williams and Adidas themselves. Call us at Sagman, Bennett, Robbins, Oppenheim, and Taft injury lawyers right now, and you can join our class action lawsuit against Pharrell Williams and his death device sneakers. Call us now, 1-600-LAWYER-B. The B stands for bargain. Back on the show, Sockjig Live, and I want to talk about Complex for a little bit. They've been in the news lately. One is that they have a new host, Upscale Vandal, that people are not a fan of. They've been very vocal in the YouTube comments about him. And also the Sneaker of the Year panel that they're doing at ComplexCon in October that people are also not a fan of and are being very vocal in the comments. But my disclaimer about this before I start is my beef with Complex is over. I'm not trying to reignite it. It's all in the past. It's nice that it's in the past. And if anything, I'm trying to show what I've learned from it. But first up is the new host, Upscale Vandal, has got a lot of feedback, especially in the YouTube comments. If you check out the YouTube comments, there's a lot of angry comments in there, and that's their audience voicing their opinion. And ultimately, it's better to get something like that, some sort of feedback, even if it's harsh, than getting nothing at all. Crickets and no views, no comments would be worse. But those comments, they're pressing him, Upscale Vandal, on talking over the other hosts. And my thoughts were that he's just a New Yorker. That's just how I assume New Yorkers talk. And eventually they'll figure out a rhythm and a rapport, and he won't be talking over them. People are also pressing him on calling himself the GR King, and I guess even the hosts were pressing him about this, calling himself that, giving himself a nickname when he doesn't wear GRs on the show. And I've noticed sometimes with big collectors who have huge collections of rare sneakers, they also want to tell you how much they love GRs, because if you are out there nakedly showing that I only like these rare sneakers, it makes it look like you only care about the one thing, the hype beast. You don't want to be a hype beast. You want to show that you truly care and love the game. So you got to talk about how you love GRs as well too. And I believe them. I do believe that you love GRs and you love rare sneakers. But ultimately, you are being showcased on platforms like Complex because of your rare sneakers. It's not because you have the widest collection of GRs or anything like that. The other thing that people in the YouTube comments were pressing him on was that he said that he's not really into sneakers right now, which when I first heard that, I was like, that's a crazy thing to say. I had to rewind. Did he really say that? And my thought was that this is kind of like a mask off moment, that you're kind of revealing or laying bare, lifting the kimono, that why you're on the show, that you got a name, you got a collection, you got the right friends, you got a good network, you're available. And it's not because you're into sneakers right now, because you clearly said, I'm not into sneakers. You're being hired to learn on the job. You're being hired to learn to love again. In podcasting, your kind of main goals are to be of value to the listener, to give them something worth tuning in for, and to be likable. Being likable is like a key part of podcasts. And I can always tell when someone listens to a lot of podcasts because they just inherently know this. And if I were to guess, I would guess that he doesn't listen to many podcasts, but I don't know him. Maybe he does. But ultimately, to me, he'll figure it out. New Yorkers are likable. New Yorkers are hustlers. He'll establish that rhythm and rapport with Welty and JLP. And he'll do it with the audience, maybe a portion of the audience. Maybe it'll take a while. It'll just take a bunch of reps and practice. The other news with Complex was their Sneaker of the Year panel. And they announced 6 panelists this time. There's the 3 from the show. And they added Fat Joe, Vashti, and Brendan Dunn from StockX. And I joked on Twitter that they should, add 3 more slots and make it a Hollywood Squares grid. Center Square could be like empty until Lil Yachty shows up. Again, my disclaimer is I'm not critiquing this panel. I get that they have to have known names. I get that it's bigger than just a community thing. Brendan Dunn on there, that one's obvious, even though he works for StockX now. Fat Joe, rapper, podcaster, sneakerhead, known Complex friend. Vashti, she's not much into sneakers these days from what I've seen in a day-to-day, week-to-week sense. Her life these days is being an Indian mom with a baby stroller. But she's a known person. She's a woman. She's a friend of a Complex. She's been on the panel before, so it checks enough boxes, even if she's not been into sneakers that much lately. But there's another panelist up there, Upscale Vanda, who's not into sneakers that much lately, as he said. But the usual discourse happens, at least on Twitter, with these Sneaker of the Year panelists that they need more representation. They need more black representation. I can't speak on that. I don't want to get hit by an EMP on my first radio show. Or they need more women. I should say that obviously for person on internet, on sneaker Twitter, on Instagram, YouTube comments, if you're just a sneakerhead, you can say whatever you want. You are free to judge the list, talk shit on the list. In this context, I'm more talking about other content creators complaining about Complex. And I hesitate because, like I said, I've tried not to do content about content or content about content creators, but it always comes up, so I kind of have to speak on it here. What the unspoken part that I'm seeing a lot is like, it should be me up there. I'm the one who should be on the stage with them. I have the knowledge. I'm in the community. I have followers. It might not be 35,000 or 70,000 or whatever, but I have some followers. But no one can really go up on any platform and say that. So they have to say, oh, it should have been this person or it should have been that person. And that's fine and all if you are, like I said, just a regular person saying that. But when it comes from other content creators, I just simply don't believe them. Maybe they are genuine, but what I hear is it should have been me. And I know you might be thinking kind of the obvious that, hey, Sagman, are you really complaining about content creators complaining about Complex? Because that was you. That was your whole shtick. And you're right. That is exactly why I'm saying it, because I'm saying learn from me, learn from my experience. Look, I had a lot of valid points and criticisms about Complex. There might have been times where I crossed the line or was too aggressive in how I said some of them, but there were times where I was fair and measured as well too. But ultimately, they do things their way. They showcase their friends and people with star power. That's just how they've chosen to operate. I said things along those lines, and I didn't really change anyone's opinion about them by saying that. Because people like lists, people like arguing about Sneaker of the Year, and people like them. People like Joe LaPuma, people like Welty, people like Dunn. They understand that to be a podcast that people listen to, you have to be likable. So yeah, you can voice your displeasure with the panelists and with their new hosts and all that. And if you want to do your own Sneaker of the Year list or grid or whatever, go right ahead. I've done a Sneaker of the Year bracket that is involved with the community for like the last 5-6 years now. But learn from me. It's not worth feuding with Complex. You won't be leading an army like Braveheart and taking them down. They are just too big and too likable. If you just accept them for who they are and how they operate, a lot of their decisions will make a lot more sense. If you do not accept how they operate, you don't have to watch the show. You can unfollow them. You can mute them. You'll ultimately be happier. And I'll be happier after this break. Sockjig Live, back after this. Welcome back to the show. Next up, I want to talk about Virgil Abloh exhibit that's going on in Paris called The Codes. And there they had like 20,000 prototypes, sketches, furniture, art pieces, clothing, and sneaker collabs, of course. And this was all curated by his widow, Shannon Abloh, to celebrate her husband and to kind of show how wide his interests were, that he was really a volume shooter. And it was also to show off how he collected and archived everything. And they were going by this new name of VAA, which is short for Virgil Abloh Archive. And it seems like in future with collabs with Nike that are coming up soon, they're going by this name now, VAA, and it's no more Off-White. And the ownership of Off-White has, moved around. It was New Guards Group, it was LVMH, it was then sold off to Blue Star Alliance, which I think owns the name now. And somewhere along the lines, somewhere along the way, in however much percentage the estate owns, it must have been agreed upon that Virgil's work with Nike would continue under this new name. So no more Off-White. So somewhere in the legal agreements, they must have agreed to this. And at this exhibit, they were showing off these pine green Air Force Ones, and it's not really clear if it's releasing or if it's just a sample for the exhibit. And on the side panel, on the lateral side, medial side, it says VAA for Nike, whereas the original one said Off-White for Nike. And they are releasing Sesame ones of these Air Force Ones, and those ones say Nike Inc. care of Virgil Abloh. So I don't know, they're moving them around, they're changing it around of what they say on there officially. And those Sesame ones, they have like more official photos of those leaking, I guess, and I guess they are coming out next year, along with the Jordan 1, EU White Alaska or whatever it's called now. But those pine green Air Force Ones that they were showing, they were not that great. And I was thinking, does it really matter? No, it does not matter if they're not really that good. Virgil actually had a lot of bad sneakers with Nike. He put rubber spikes on sneakers for no reason. He put holes in shoes for no reason. Like, he was a volume shooter. He was trying things, and whatever idea he had the ability to get it made. He also had collabs that made no sense, like even the Evian water bottles or Chrome Heart traffic cones and things like that. But I guess the point of this exhibit, the point of art and these kind of archives is to show you that when someone's interests are wide, that they were a volume shooter, that it kind of shows you where in the slot the Evian bottle lands in terms of his, wide interests. Basically, I'm saying maybe if you go to that exhibit, maybe all that stuff makes sense. I also saw a Twitter comment about how he was often accused of ripping off younger designers as well. And it's not always clear if it was like a blatant ripoff, if he saw this and was like, I'm going to do that and make money off that guy, screw that guy. Or if he just absorbed it just being a volume shooter and didn't realize that he was unintentionally ripping someone off. Or he just came to the same conclusion. But after death, how you see people and remember them changes. You want to remember them fondly for all the good things that they did and not any of the wrong things they did in life. So those are generally absolved. And this is almost like an important process of grief. And it doesn't, this step doesn't have to be with someone famous like Virgil. It could be like family members and things like that. But you want to remember them for the good that they did and for being a good person. And Virgil was a good person. He was never publicly a dick to anyone. He was usually really nice to people, even on Instagram comments and in person. So hopefully they make a tour of this exhibit and they take it to different cities and people can remember Virgil, and rest in peace, Virgil Abloh. For the 30th anniversary of the Jordan 11, instead of the usual single holiday release, this year they're releasing like 9 sneakers. One is the retro of the Gamma, which first appeared in 2013. There's a new Rare Air version, which is like aged yellow and navy. And there's like 7 more. One is the purple Mojave, and others are like kids exclusives, women exclusives. Some are city exclusive or retailer, or even like region, like China exclusive. And each has like something unique about it with different materials and things like that. And, they're doing a lot of new and different things to a Jordan 11, which has traditionally been a really protected silhouette. You couldn't really do much to it. Now, the reins are off and they're doing a whole lot to it. And so this collection, I don't think they're that great. There's a millennial nostalgia for the Gamma 11s, and that's fine. But this segment is not really about my thoughts about this collection. It's more about asking, how did we get here? How do we get to this type of collection? How do we get to now collabs with the Jordan 11? Ama Manier new store, new women's store, Jade, is having a Jordan 11 low collab next year, supposedly. When previously, as I said, it was always been a protected silhouette, the highs specifically. And there haven't really been any collabs other than the Jeter one, which is special in its own right. They always had like this formula with this sneaker just because it's been a coveted sneaker for so long. The idea was always, we're going to protect it. We're going to build anticipation. It's only going to come out once a year. We're going to reward the audience with it. And then we get the big payoff. There's examples of this in real life, in professional fighting, in pro wrestling even. I always do pro wrestling comparison, but the traditional pro wrestling comparison, or even like UFC or whatever, is you establish a champion. In pro wrestling, it could be a heel champion, a bad guy. And then you establish a contender. And that good guy, babyface contender tells a story, builds a story of the hero climbing the mountain, fighting every challenger they can to get to that champion. And then finally, at the big event of the year, where the stakes are high and there's a big fight field, the fight is set, and eventually the good guy wins, the bad guy is defeated, the audience is rewarded, and if you've done this right, you've made a ton of money. You sold out a big fight, you sold out merch, you sold it as a pay-per-view. So the formula, you built anticipation, you rewarded the audience, you got the big payoff money-wise. And this same kind of thing happened in a baseball game recently in the American League Divisional Series between the Seattle Mariners and the Detroit Tigers. This was a Game 5. It was a win or go home game. And usually in the 7th inning stretch, there's a salmon run where like some mascots do a race. And I think this is like borrowed from the Brewers where they do like a sausage run. But in Seattle, because it's Seattle, they do a salmon run where it's people dressed up as salmon mascots. And one of them is named Humpy, who has never, ever won. The whole year, Humpy was like 0-162. And even in this game, in the 7th inning, Humpy had lost. But then when this game went to extra innings, it was in the 14th inning where they did another 14th inning stretch. And they sent the mascots back out there to do another run. Only this time, Humpy, the salmon that has never, ever won, breaks through the other contenders and wins the race, and the crowd just went insane. They've been cheering and watching this mascot be in last place all year, and it finally came through. Even the Mariner players were cheering in the dugout. And in the 15th inning, the Mariners rallied and won the game right there. But this basically followed the same formula that I said. They built anticipation with a losing streak. They had a character, the lovable loser, Humpy, was always losing, was never going to win it. And then when they needed to break it out, to break glass in case of emergency, they used it at the perfect time. They rewarded the audience, and they got the big payoff by the Mariners winning that game. You know, they went on to lose to the Blue Jays, but that's a different story. But they protected something, protected a story, and got the big payoff when they needed it. But back to the Jordan 11, I was looking at sales numbers that were given in earnings reports and conference calls over the years. And so I compiled a couple stats from some of them. In 2015, when the 7210 came out, you know, all these earning reports are the following years, but I'm just going to use the year that the sneaker came out. They said that 7210 sold 1 million pairs, and it was the largest release ever on Nike.com. Next year, 2016 Space Jam, again, said it was the largest release ever. In 2018, the Concorde, it was reported that that was the single largest sneaker drop in industry history, not in company history, in sneaker industry history. The following year was the 2019 Bread 11s, and again, it was reported that was the largest launch in company history. In 2020 was the Jubilee Jordan 11, which I could not even remember what it looked like, but it's like an all-black upper. That one, it said in earnings reports, made over 175 million, and that retail was at 220, and I found a complex article about it. They said that if you did the math, that came out to 800,000 units. So we went from over 1 million pairs from the 2015, that number was given, to I assume we're probably in that range in the years following. And now the numbers are going down, but they're still making a shit ton of money, 175 million. And then in 2021 with the Cool Gray, It was said that was when Donahue was still the CEO. He said in an earnings report that it was the largest single style in the history of Nike Direct, but no other numbers were given. And since then, I was looking for any other Holiday 11 numbers, could not find anything in the earnings reports. And I don't think anyone's really noticed this. I didn't really notice this until researching these earnings calls for the segments. All I could find was mostly vague references about these silhouettes being icons. The last concrete value given in an earnings report was that $175 million for the 2020 Jubilee Jordan 11. And since then, the releases haven't been like all that great. There's been the Cherry one in 2022. In 2023 was the Gratitude, which is the DMP Concord. And, the Concord had released an OG format in like the 5 years previous. And then last year, 2024, was the Legend Blue, which, went on sale. So the trend went from, this is the biggest release of the year. This is the biggest industry release ever to, we made 175 million to quietly, we sold fewer pairs, but at higher retail. So we probably made more money to now nothing in the last 5 years. So usually if you have good news to report, you would tell the shareholders that, you would tell the reporters listening in to that conference call that, but maybe someone would do this. Maybe they would give a number and someone could compare it to previous years and write an article saying that the Jordan 11 is losing its luster, and you don't want to do that, so you don't say it. And obviously, the Jordan 11 is always going to be a big sneaker. The OGs specifically will always hit no matter what. So when this new collection, this 30th anniversary collection came out, I had a tweet saying Jordan 11s are such a protected silhouette by Jordan Brand for so long, only to loosen the reins for an onslaught of mid. It's basically saying, why protect it for so long for this trash? Like, why not have that big main event WrestleMania show where you unleash it? And as I was researching the segment, it became evident that their big payoff was 2015 to 2021 when they made more money than ever. And in those years, they rewarded the audience. They gave them cool grays, which hadn't retroed since 2011. They gave them Concords and Breads. They gave that generation the OGs that they wanted. But I think now, to make up the same kind of revenue that they were previously making with one single holiday release, they now have to spread it across multiple sneakers, like 8 or 9 sneakers. I personally think they could still do so much more with 11s. There, people on Twitter had a lot of great ideas for what they could do as takeoffs of the OGs, like Dirty Breads for Atlanta and things like that. I saw lots of good ideas on Twitter. And maybe they'll eventually do that. But one thing's for sure with the Jordan 11, we're in the end game now. Sockjig Live, back after this. Are you a sneaker consignment shop that's been raided by the feds? Is the bunco division breathing down your back? And your lawyer, Arnie Becker, is not returning your calls? Well, we here at Sagman, Bennett, Robbins, Oppenheim, and Taft will defend you in any trial for $129.95. You may have tried the best sneaker lawyers out there. Now is the time to try the rest. Call 1-600-LAWYER-B. The B stands for bargain. And if you call in now, you'll get a free Labubu. Quantities are limited, so call in now. 1-600-LAWYER-B. Welcome back to the show, and for the last segment, I wanted to talk about cool kicks and stolen sneakers and the great sneaker train robberies that are happening. In case you don't know, Cool Kicks is a shop in LA. They do a lot of viral videos with celebrities and rappers. I remember like Lil Uzi Vert was on there. They even do like a version of like their ripoff of sneaker shopping. And they also do it with like OnlyFans girls and porn stars. And for the record, I don't know any of those porn stars that were on those videos. Never heard of them. Never seen those names before. This is on the record, so it's got to be true. They also go live on Whatnot a lot, selling a lot of like dirt cheap sneakers. Chat, who wants this Air Max 95 for $50? Chat, what do you think of my sweater? Is it a little too loud? Chat, am I being raided? Chat, did you swat me right now? Chat, am I cooked? Am I cooked, chat? Basically that kind of stuff. This next generation loves this kind of stuff. So that was the content they were creating for an audience that wants that and wants $50 Air Max 95s. But where were they getting Air Max 95s that they could sell for $50? And so the timeline of events here is that early in October, they were raided by the LAPD's Bunko division. And what kind of name is Bunko? Is there a Fugazi division? Is there a waiting room in the Fugazi division? And the word Bunko is very like old school LA Confidential. The name itself insinuates that it's about fakes and counterfeits, and that's what this division investigates. They investigate fraud, counterfeits, forgeries, and other white-collar crimes. But in this case, this falls under white-collar crimes. And I think that's where there was a lot of the confusion, but also because of Cool Kicks itself. Like, how could you get $50 sneakers? But when the Bunko division investigates you and raids you, the people who investigate fakes, people are naturally going to assume you got fakes and you got counterfeits. That's natural to assume. But their press releases and statements made after the fact was like, no. This has nothing to do with fakes or counterfeits. This is all about a misunderstanding. This is about 500,000 in stolen goods that they confiscated. So that's what they ended up confiscating in this raid, 500,000 of stolen sneakers. But Cool Kicks was like, hey, whatever you're going to say about us, to be clear, they're not fakes. We're the victims here. We just naturally bought some sneakers and had no clue they were stolen. So later, a couple days later, there was a raid on a house and they arrested some guy and they found 1.4 million in stolen train cargo inside. And everyone naturally assumed, hey, Cool Kicks must have snitched. How else would they be able to get there? And even that is a natural assumption to make. But like, how did we get here? Honestly, I talked about this in episode 57, which is September 2023, 2 years ago. The title of that episode was Stolen Sneakers, Fake Sneakers, or Backdoored Sneakers. And I talked about how it's so hard to tell the difference when you're on the outside looking in on these kind of stories. Say one of these resale shops gets 500 pairs of GR Jordan 4s and they're plugging them on Instagram and on whatnot or whatever. For the person watching who's like, how did they get this? Is this stolen sneakers from a train? Is it backdoored from a retail place? In which case, it's not exactly illegal. Or is it fake? If they were fakes, you could at least authenticate them or try them. But like, who has access to actually do that? But from an outsider looking in, just a person watching on their whatnot stream, they're just thinking this is backdoored. And that's part of the con. That's what the stores are going to get. Hey, we can't tell you how we got these, but we got a really good deal on them. Wink, wink, they're backdoored. Or they were stolen. The difference between stolen and backdoored is, criminal versus not criminal. But in terms of someone getting 500 pairs, it's hard to tell. For example, let's put you in this position. Say you run XYZ resale shop. You are referred by another shop owner that says, hey, I got a guy who can get you sneakers. He just backdoors them. So this person is recommended to you. He's referred to you. And that guy, like we said, has 500 pairs of Cave Stone Jordan 4s. And you could ask him, hey, where'd you get them from? And he says, I backdoored them from shops in Brockway, Ogdenville, and North Haverbrook. So you buy them. Maybe you even get an invoice and a receipt. And so you got a receipt from a guy who sold you 500 pairs of Cave Stone Jordan 4s for under retail. The next day, the Bunko division raids you and you're like, chat, am I cooked here? And the next day, the Bunko division raids you and they say, hey, where'd you get all these Jordan 4s from? They're stolen. Did you rob a train for these? And you're like, no, I'm not some daku or anything. Here's my invoice. Here's the text messages. I just bought them from a guy. It's all legit. So, obviously that's just an example of what could happen here. The best case example of at least probably what Cool Kicks is trying to say to the cops as well too. But the key part here is the cops have to have evidence that you did that you robbed the train yourself, or that you knowingly bought stolen sneakers. They have to have text messages where you're talking to a shady guy saying, oh shit, they're stolen? Fucking rights, dude, I'll take them. Or they need to have a phone call recording where they need a wiretap or something where you said the same thing. Or they were in your warehouse and they put a bug in there or something and they got a warrant to do that. Either way, they need credible evidence that they could submit to court that you, the shop owner, knowingly bought stolen sneakers and you're in on the scheme. If they don't have that, all they have is you with possession of stolen sneakers. So how would they get that evidence? Obviously, you could hand over the phone and show them the message in order to clear yourself, especially if you were doing things, by the book, quote unquote. If you were like, here's the invoice for the guy, you could see everything's in order. Or you can cut a plea and snitch and say, yeah, that guy told me they're stolen and he backdoors them from Brockway, Ogdenville, and North Haverbrook. And here's my text messages as proof. Most likely the cops don't have that full evidence. They don't have access to your phone messages or recordings of phone calls, because I assume the people who are doing this kind of stuff are careful about that kind of stuff. Perhaps they're just like counting on you to flip. Either way, they're just going to take all the shit and they can take whatever else they want because it's like, that could be evidence. Take that as well too. That's probably allegedly what they did with Project Blitz. So that episode that I did about stolen sneakers and stuff, that was 2 years ago, about the feds closing in. They're looking into this kind of stuff. And I'm not involved in this at all. And if someone like me can talk about it, who's like totally far away from it, then surely the people who do this day to day and talk to whatnot audience every day know way more than I do. And you'll see some spots, some places that had early pairs, they've been pretty quiet lately, like Private Selection, and not posted early sneakers, probably for this very reason, because as soon as they saw the net was closing in or whatever, they're like, hey, let's stop that immediately. Or maybe it all went underground, and the version of underground these days is whatnot. You can sell whatever you want on there. People are selling an essential hoodie like every 5 seconds on there, whatever the hell they're doing. But for whatever reason, Cool Kicks stayed active in this realm. They were confidently still selling those pairs as if the net was not closing in. So I'm not sure if they were confident that they have their own loopholes covered. They used Signal and encryption and all that kind of shit. Didn't talk about this over messages, only in person. Or they were just arrogant that because we did all that, we can't possibly be covered. Either way, they got stolen goods. The feds have to prove that they're stolen goods, and anyone with possession of stolen goods is still going to get dinged somehow. So that's what they got to deal with, and most of this is all happening because of their own arrogance. This has been Sockjig Live, Sockjig Almost Live. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the radio format. As I said in the beginning, I'll probably play with the format, introduce guests and stuff here and there for segments. But let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. And until then, go fuck yourself.